Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. And today we're going to be talking about Mahler's Symphony Number 3, the longest symphony in the repertoire, at 1 hour and 40 fun-filled minutes and 6 movements chock full of good stuff. You know, it's had a surprising number of very good performances. I just think it's one of those symphonies that's like so crazy that only people who really believe in it do it. And so most of the time they do a pretty good job with it. It's also, people don't give Mahler credit for this. He was so good at orchestral writing. He was such a brilliant writer for orchestra, and his scores are so detailed. And yeah, there's a lot of interpretive leeway. There are things that people kind of get wrong. I mean, they have just a huge range of expression that you need to encompass in order to pull it off. But if you just do what he wrote, you're really going to have a good time with it. It's going to work. And some of the conductors who are usually dumped all over, like Bernstein for being kitschy and emotionally extravagant and all that, when you look at the actual score and what he does, you see that he's one of the most literal of all the Mahler conductors. I mean, there is nothing he does in these works that you can't say, aha, that's what Mahler said to do. And most of the ones that people appreciate for being like structural or, emotionally more reserved or formally integrated and all that, they're ignoring half of what Mahler asked them to do. I mean, it's a fact. You can see it. You can see it right there. But anyway, there have been quite a few good ones and quite a few recent good ones, actually. For example, Ivan Fischer is just marvelous on Channel Classics. And the Andrew Litton one on Delos, I mean, that's not that recent, but it's very, very good. I mean, Eliyahu Inbal's Denon recording was wonderful. I mean, we're not limited to just like the usual Mahler people with the Third Symphony. Manfred Honeck did one that was quite fine. So there's plenty to choose from. But my choices come down to 2. And this is a 2 for the price of 1, because I think you really need to have both to hear. It's such a cosmic work. I mean, it's a chain of life symphony, right? It begins with inert nature and ends with summer marching in, with the renewal of life as a general concept. Then we move from animal, vegetable, and mineral. It starts with mineral. And then we go to plants, what the flowers in the meadow tell me. And then critters. And then animals in the scherzo, and then mankind, who is a Nietzschean mankind with a really glum demeanor, and then a wonderful bit of sort of religious kitsch that Mahler uses to sort of reveal on the one hand the charm, and on the other hand the uselessness of formal organized religious thought in the fifth movement, and then beyond mankind's rather tacky expression of religious sentiment, there is love, music and love and the transcendental at the very end of the symphony. It's an insanely ambitious concept. Mahler pulls it off amazingly well. And the performances that I just can't get enough of are the first Bernstein with the New York Philharmonic, which everybody acknowledges as one of his incomparably great Mahler recordings. His remake's really good too, frankly, but this one just has a bit more freshness and guts to it, so what the heck. And Haitink with the Concertgebouw. These are the polar extremes, and the reason is because the piece sort of hangs on 2 movements, because you've got the big first movement and the big finale, and everything else is sort of intermezzo-ish in the middle. But the first movement is the toughest one to do well, because it involves taste. It involves, Mahler's explosion of nature is a sleazy, slimy funeral march with a trombone solo, which is actually, and one of the things that I love telling people, because it's really true, is that you can hear the model for that kind of writing, that funeral march with a trombone solo, in the 3rd act of Verdi's La Traviata. It's Mahler transmogrifying the topoi, the topics, the usual, sort of throwaway gizmos of Italian opera into something totally totally different and in such an odd place that you won't even know where it comes from. But the first time I played La Traviata, when Violetta tells Alfredo to take this picture and show it to your girlfriend as someone who loved you, it's, prendi quest'immagine, she's like dying of tuberculosis. And the orchestra with its bass drum and the trombones is going, dum, da 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 dum, da 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 da. It's like I was playing the bass drum going, where have I heard that before? Yeah, it's Mahler 3. It's Mahler who was so indebted to the traditions of Italian opera. And I did a video about that, which you can go and look and see. The Italian influence on Mahler. It's a fascinating topic that has been almost completely ignored because Mahler people tend not to like trashy Italian opera. I think it's glorious Italian opera, but they think it's trashy. And German musicologists even more usually hate Mahler. And if they hate Mahler, they really hate the Italians. You have to just listen. Mahler was a conductor for most of his early career in German spa towns, and he conducted Italian operas. That was the music he knew. And when he became a symphonist and started incorporating the world into his symphonies, a lot of that world came from the world of mid-19th century Italian opera. It's absolutely fascinating. And that's one of the great moments. And then you've got those huge marches, and then there's that development section where the trombones go nuts with the oompa banjos, and blah, 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 blah. And most conductors, they just don't have it in them to be that vulgar. Bernstein did, unashamedly, and it's what Mahler wrote. Again, it's what's there. And it sounds just so fabulous when you realize it the way Mahler wanted you to realize it. So symphonies of, performances of the Third Symphony, on the one hand, live or die on how well conductors are willing to go there in the first movement, but also how they handle the finale, because the finale is an adagio. It's a 20-some-odd minute long adagio, and you have to sustain the tension, you have to sustain the atmosphere, and the last pages are some of the most tricky in symphonic music, because you've got the timpani going bum, 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 like that, on. And what most people don't think about is that it's actually a recurring idea. The adagio contains elements of the first movement. Actually, the first movement was written last. It's the other way around. It contains bits of the adagio, which Mahler does intentionally to unify the whole span. But the ending of each movement, each of the major movements, that's the first, the scherzo, which is like 16 or 17 minutes, it's also a major movement, and the finale is the same. It all features pounding timpani in fourths, going bum, 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 bum. In the first movement, they're very quick. In the scherzo, they're also very quick. In the adagio, they're very slow. But the endings are recollections of the same idea. That's one of Mahler's motives for sort of ecstatic happiness, is this boom, 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 that sort of pounding stuff. And so when it comes back in the finale, Mahler says the entire, the trumpets have to dominate, but the entire orchestra, he says, should have a saturated, a noble, gesättigt, saturated, I think is the term. It's sated tone. And it's not supposed to be loud, and it's not or loud in like a fortissimo, screamy loud, and it's not supposed to be harsh. It's supposed to be rich and organ-like, and nothing has ever approached this one for nailing that ending. He just nails it, and the whole movement is gorgeous. And so it's a question of, what they call swings and roundabouts. Which one is better? Bernstein just has the first movement. I think Haitink in this performance just has the finale, and in between there's the honors are evenly divided. You have the Concertgebouw with its amazing woodwind section. You have the New York Phil with its wildly terrific brass playing and everything else. I can't choose. It depends on my mood. I either go for this one or I go for that one. And sometimes I'll go for any of the other half a dozen that I think are marvelous, just for a change of pace. But wow, Bernstein and Haitink, unbelievable in Mahler's Third Symphony. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.